All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I'm just going to be doing, a lesson on the 10 plagues, that were sent to ancient Egypt, because tomorrow, we'll be holding, the Passover. So, I'm just going to be, re-going over, the plagues that were sent to ancient Egypt, and why, you know. So I'm just going to go into each of the 10 plagues. I'm going to do two parts, the first five, and then come back with a part two, with the other 5 plagues that were sent, So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And I'm going to start with the book of Exodus chapter 3 and verse 7. And it says, And the Lord said, And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And this is talking about how, us, the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, we were being afflicted by the Egyptians. They were putting hell on us. They made it, harder for us, to get things done. Verse 8, it says, And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the land, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And that land that it's talking about is, formerly known as the land of Canaan, aka the land of Israel or Palestine. Verse 9, it says, Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians have oppressed them. So, they were oppressing us, and this is the first major captivity that we went into, as a nation, where all 12 tribes were oppressed together, So let's see what plagues were sent and why, So I have this, PDF that I have saved, for a couple years now. And if I can find the website, I'll leave it, in the description box for those that want to check it out. But let's just read it. It got the picture of Caesar, which, we don't subscribe to that guy. But it says the 10 Egyptian plagues testify of Yahweh Shai, the anointed one, and his power to save. It says Moses and Aaron are sent as messengers of the Lord to Pharaoh to instruct him to let the children of Israel go, so that they may serve the Lord. It is further stipulated that they must be allowed to travel a 3 days journey, so that they may offer their sacrifices as a means of worship. So again, Pharaoh, he wouldn't let us go. The Lord hardened his heart. So what was the first plague that was sent? Which was water being turned into blood. And that plague was being sent to confound, the god Hapi, which is the Egyptian god of the Nile, because the Egyptians had many gods. So it says the first plague that was given to the Egyptians from Yahweh was that turning of the water to blood, as Aaron, the spokesman for Moses, touched the rod of the Lord to the Nile River, it immediately turned to blood. All the fish died, and the river stank. Partially able to duplicate this miracle, the magicians of Pharaoh also turned water into blood, leaving Pharaoh unimpressed with this great wonder from Yahweh. It says 7 days the water throughout all the land of Egypt remained in this state, unsuitable for drinking, the perfect length of time to demonstrate that the Lord was superior to all the gods of Egypt. And indeed, the Heavenly Father is above all gods, not just the gods of Egypt. So let's coming back to the book of Exodus. Let's go to chapter 7. So before we get into the first plague, I'm just going to read down because, I'm pretty much, just to, give the backstory. So I'm actually going to end up reading the entire book of Exodus, the 7th chapter. So this is Exodus chapter 7 and verse 1. And you see the subtitle reads, I will stretch out my hand. It says, And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And that's exactly what the Heavenly Father did. He sent Moses and Aaron, before Pharaoh to, go and speak unto him to let the children of Israel go. But what? The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. 1 minute, well, no, I'm not going to let them go. A plague was sent. Okay, I'll let them go, But what? The Lord would continue to harden his heart, so that he wouldn't let us go, so that, just like it says, he can show great signs. Verse 5, it says, And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt, and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 old, and Aaron was 83 old when they spake unto Pharaoh. So Moses was 80 and Aaron was 83, because a score is 20. So it says Aaron's rod becomes a serpent. It says, And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They did so in like manner with their enchantments, for they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods, and he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord has said. And right. And these two magicians were, Jannes and Jambres. So real quick, let's just prove that, who these two men were, because it doesn't mention them, here in the book of Exodus, but it does mention them here in the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. So, right, those were the two men, that came up against Moses and Aaron. Those were the magicians, the sorcerers, the wise men that were performing those, left hand miracles, if you will, magic, So coming back. So, yeah. So verse 14, and as you can see, water is turned to blood. It says, And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuseth to let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuseth to let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuseth to let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuseth to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink against he come, and the rod which was turned to a serpent thou shalt take in thy hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord Yahweh, power of the Hebrews, hath sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink of the water of the river. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river, in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, neither did he set his heart to this also. And all the Egyptians digged around the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. And 7 days were fulfilled. After that, the Lord had smitten the river. So, right, that was the first plague, water being turned to blood, right? That was the first plague that was sent. And what was the second plague that was sent? Frogs, to confound Heket. It says Egyptian goddess of fertility, water, and renewal. It says, Still, Pharaoh refused to let the children of Israel go from the presence of Egypt. The second plague that was extended upon Egypt from the rod by Aaron was that of frogs. The frogs came up from the river and were in their houses, in their food, in their clothing, in every place possible. From the greatest to the least, no one in Egypt escaped the plague of frogs. Pharaoh's magicians were able to bring more frogs in their attempt to imitate the power of Yahweh, but only Moses was able to make the frogs go away. This was another attack on a famous Egyptian goddess, Heket. So, right, this was the plague that was sent to confound, the goddess. And as you can see, it has a woman's body, green skin, and the face of a frog. The Egyptians, they bugged out, man, ham. So, jumping to Exodus chapter 8 and verse 1, and as you see, the headline or the subtitle, Frogs of the Land, says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs. And the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thine bed chamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, glory over me when I shall, glory over me, when shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from off, from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he said, tomorrow. And he said, be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord Yahweh our power. And the frog shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people, and they only, they shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together unto heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. Let's look up that word respite real quick. And it says Ravaka, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Ravaka. And it says what? Respite, relief. It's just, relief. So pretty much after, the frogs, died, they were sent away, then what? The Lord hardened his heart again, So that was the second plague that was sent. And what was the third plague that was sent? Lice, to confound Geb, the Egyptian god of the earth. So it says, still, Pharaoh would not concede, even after this display of power from the Lord, or magnificent plague. He would not let them go. At the command of the Lord to Moses, Aaron was told to stretch forth his rod and smite the dust of the earth. When he did it, the dust became lice throughout all the land, on both people and beasts. The very dust that was referred to in the creation process of man is now used to plague men, as a reminder of his mortality and sin, which both lead to death, because it does say in the scriptures that, wages is the sin of death. It says, finally, the magicians of Pharaoh are humiliated, being unable to compete with this power that was so much greater than themselves, and the powers that they had from their Egyptian gods and goddesses, and they profess, this is the finger of God. This was the last plague that required Aaron's involvement, and the next set of 3 plagues are issued by the word of Moses himself. So let's get into the next plague. Continuing in Exodus chapter 8, picking back up at verse 16, and the subtitle, the plague of insects, says, and the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice upon man and upon beasts. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, This is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water. And say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereupon they are. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, because that's where we dwelt, in the land of Goshen, which, if I'm not mistaken, today would be Alexandria, Egypt. It says, in which my people dwell, then no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be, Slakia. Excuse me. And, that was the next plague that was sent. Flies to confound the Egyptian god Capri, which is the Egyptian god of creation, movement of the sun, rebirth. So it says, with the fourth Egyptian plague, which consisted of flies, excuse me, Salakia, begins the great miracle of separation or differentiation. Moses met Pharaoh at the Nile River in the morning and made the demand, speaking on behalf of the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Again, Pharaoh hardened his heart and disregarded the request, resulting in a pronouncement of swarms of flies. This time, however, only the Egyptians are affected by the judgment or plague, and the children of Israel remain unscathed. This wonder also moves the Egyptian plagues to a different level. Excuse me, Slakia. Adding destruction as well as discomfort to the consequences. Slakia. Adding destruction as well as discomfort to the consequence of their decisions. Plagued by flies, Pharaoh tried a new tactic and begins bargaining with the Lord, showing his desire to maintain power and authority over Yahweh. He tries to dictate the terms and conditions of the offer, telling them that they may sacrifice, but only in the land, clearly not complying with the requested 3 days journey that the Lord required. Moses wouldn't budge, and Pharaoh relented, allowing them to leave, telling them not to go very far. This temporary allowance is made solely to excuse me, says solely to have Moses entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart. At this point, Pharaoh has learned in part who the Lord is and asks for his assistance over the Egyptian gods and goddesses. As soon as the request is granted by the Lord, Pharaoh reneges on his promise and will not let them go and continues to worship his Egyptian gods. So let's come back to Exodus chapter 8 in verse 24. It says, "And the Lord did so, and there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into the house of his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said, Go ye, sacrifice to the Lord your power in the land. And Moses said, It is not meet so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our power. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abominations of the Egyptians before their eyes? And will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our power as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that ye may sacrifice to the Lord your power in the wilderness. Only ye shall not go very far, entreat me. And Moses said, Behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh and from his servants and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh and from his servants and from his people. There remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. So he refused to still let the children of Israel go, So which is why the 5th plague was sent, which is what the death of, cattle and or livestock, to confound Hathor, Egyptian goddess of love and protection. And it says, Moses once again demanded of Pharaoh, Let my people go, that they may serve me, revealing also the next Egyptian plague to occur on the condition of continued disobedience to the request. This plague is given with an advance warning, allowing a period of repentance to occur, which goes unheeded. Tomorrow, the hand of the Lord will be felt upon all the cattle and livestock of only the Egyptians as a grievous murrain. This means that disease and pestilence would fall upon their livestock with so severe a consequence as to cause them to die. This plague affected the Egyptians by creating a huge economic disaster in areas of food, transportation, military supplies, farming, and economic goods that were produced by these livestock. Still, Pharaoh's heart remained hard, and he would not listen to the Lord, but remained faithful to the Egyptian gods and goddesses. So, picking back up in Exodus chapter 9 and verse 1, you should see the subtitle, Egyptian cattle die. It says, Then the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh power of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, and will still, and will hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, excuse me, Slakia, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain, and the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is the children of Israel's. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one cattle of the Israelites dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And right, man, so the death of the livestock of the Egyptians, was that fifth plague, and yet Pharaoh still refused to let us go, So these were the first 5 plagues that were sent. I'm going to come back with a part 2 to go into, the other 5 plagues, So for now, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are led this truth from. And I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.